Who was the real Robert Oppenheimer? With the release of the new movie Oppenheimer, there's renewed interest in this enigmatic figure. Today, we dive deep into the life of the scientist behind the atomic bomb, exploring his journey from a brilliant young physicist to the man who famously declared himself the destroyer of worlds. It was the early hours of July 16, 1945. Robert Oppenheimer was anxiously waiting in a control bunker, knowing that in mere moments, the world would change forever. About 10 kilometers away in the New Mexico desert, the world's first atomic bomb test, codenamed Trinity, was about to commence. Oppenheimer, always slender, looked gaunt after 3 intense years directing Project Y, the scientific effort behind the Manhattan Project. His weight had dropped to just over 52 kilograms, 115 pounds, making his 5-foot 10-inch frame look even more fragile. Exhausted and kept awake by anxiety and his smoker's cough, he had only managed 4 hours of sleep the night before. On that pivotal day in 1945, historians Kai Bird and Martin J. Sherwin, in their 2005 biography, American Prometheus, detail how an Army general observed Oppenheimer's growing tension as the final seconds ticked away. Then, the explosion occurred. It outshone the sun, with a force equivalent to 21 kilotons of TNT, creating a shock wave felt 160 kilometers, 100 miles away. The sight of the mushroom cloud and the roar engulfing the landscape brought Oppenheimer a tremendous sense of relief. Minutes later, his colleague Isidore Rabi saw him step out of the car with a triumphant strut, exclaiming, "He had done it." In the 1960s, Oppenheimer reflected on this moment, quoting the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." However, in the days that followed, his demeanor changed. Friends reported that he became increasingly depressed. One morning, he lamented the fate of the Japanese, saying, "Those poor little people." But soon, his focus shifted back to the technical aspects of the bomb's deployment, emphasizing the need for optimal conditions for its use. Less than a month after the Trinity test, Oppenheimer announced the successful bombing of Hiroshima to his colleagues, celebrating with a victorious gesture, like a prize fighter. The applause nearly raised the roof. Oppenheimer was not just the intellectual and emotional heart of the Manhattan Project. He was a complex and often contradictory figure. Born in New York City in 1904 to German Jewish immigrants who had become wealthy through the textiles trade, Oppenheimer's early life was one of privilege. Despite this, childhood friends remembered him as unspoiled and generous, albeit frail and shy. From a young age, Oppenheimer was intellectually gifted. By 9, he was reading philosophy in Greek and Latin and was deeply interested in mineralogy. His letters to the New York Mineralogical Club were so impressive that they mistook him for an adult and invited him to present his findings. However, this brilliance came with challenges. His intellectual nature often led to solitude, and he was frequently teased for not conforming to typical gender expectations. His parents, recognizing his genius, nurtured his education. When he left home to study chemistry at Harvard University, the fragility of his psychological makeup became apparent. He struggled with applied laboratory work, leading to bouts of severe depression. In a particularly dark period, Oppenheimer nearly poisoned his tutor and attempted to strangle a close friend. These incidents highlight the intense pressures he faced and the psychological toll they took on him. Yet, where psychiatry failed, literature offered solace. Oppenheimer found comfort in Marcel Proust's À la recherche du temps perdu, which opened a window to a more compassionate mode of being. This self-prescribed bibliotherapy continued throughout his life, with the Bhagavad Gita becoming a significant philosophical anchor during the Manhattan Project. In 1926, Oppenheimer's fortunes turned when he met the director of the Institute of Theoretical Physics at the University of Göttingen, who recognized his potential and invited him to study there. This period marked a turning point in his career, leading to his PhD and a postdoctoral fellowship, and introducing him to a community of scientists who would later join him at Los Alamos. Oppenheimer's personal life was equally complex. In the mid-1930s, he met Jean Tatlock, a psychiatrist who introduced him to radical politics and the poetry of John Donne. Although their romantic relationship didn't culminate in marriage, they remained close, and Tatlock significantly influenced Oppenheimer's intellectual and political development. By the late 1930s, as the nuclear threat became more apparent, Oppenheimer's expertise made him a crucial figure in the burgeoning field of atomic research. His work eventually led to his appointment as the scientific director of the Manhattan Project, a role that melded his scientific prowess with his newly developed leadership skills. At Los Alamos, Oppenheimer's interdisciplinary approach created a unique environment. He recruited not only scientists but also artists and philosophers, believing that a civilized community was incomplete without them. This holistic approach contributed to the project's success, but also to Oppenheimer's later moral dilemmas. After the war, Oppenheimer's views on nuclear weapons evolved. He described them as instruments of aggression and terror, expressing deep regret for his role in their creation. His statement to President Truman, "I feel I have blood on my hands," underscores the profound ethical conflicts he faced. In the post-war years, Oppenheimer advocated against the further development of nuclear weapons, including the hydrogen bomb. This stance led to his investigation by the US government in 1954, resulting in the revocation of his security clearance. The academic community rallied to his defense, and in 1963, he was awarded the Enrico Fermi Award, a gesture of rehabilitation. Oppenheimer spent his remaining years at the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton, promoting interdisciplinary work and emphasizing the importance of integrating humanities with science. Despite the recognition and the accolades, he continued to grapple with the moral implications of his work. Robert Oppenheimer's legacy is a tapestry of scientific brilliance, ethical quandaries, and deep philosophical reflections. His story is not just about the creation of the atomic bomb, but also about the human capacity to confront the consequences of our greatest achievements. As we reflect on his life, we are left with questions that resonate even today. How do we balance scientific progress with ethical responsibility? Can we separate the creator from the creation? And ultimately, what does it mean to be a destroyer of worlds? Thank you for joining us on this journey through the life of Robert Oppenheimer. If you found this video thought-provoking, please like, share, and subscribe. Let us know in the comments what you think about the ethical responsibilities of scientists. See you next time as we explore more intriguing stories from the world of science and beyond.